Hello and welcome back to the online sociology lesson series. I will start with a quick recap of the key skills for the 10-mark applying material from item A analyse 2 question and then look at a specific example. If you'd like more information on the skills in general for this question, then please see my previous video. For question 3 on paper 1, you're required to write with full sentences and paragraphs, therefore no bullet points or lists. We can apply the general rule across all papers. For time, every question spend 1.5 minutes per mark. Question 3 in paper 1 on education will always start with these command words, applying material from item A, analyse 2, and it's always going to be worth 10 marks. We can apply these general rules. To give you some idea of perspective, this is how the question will appear with space for your answer. This would represent two separate pieces of A4 paper. You can continue to add more to this answer, but it would need to be on additional paper that you can request from your invigilator in the exam hall. Based on the general instructions given, and hopefully a good dollop of revision, I'm going to give you a question for you to try. Have a go at answering under time conditions. Remember, that's 15 minutes, or if you have extra time, add that on as well. We'll then go through the mark scheme. You'll get a lot more out of this if you actually have a go at answering the question before looking at the mark scheme. So get those pens at the ready. We'll go on to the next slide where I'll want you to hit pause, give yourself 15 minutes of writing time. So ready, steady, and press pause while you write your answer to this question. Let's check out your answers. Remember, you're going to get a lot more from this if you actually attempted this question. So if you haven't written an answer, go back and have a go now before we move on. The easiest way to ensure you go to the bottom mark band is by making no reference to the item. I don't want to spend too much time here, and nor do you. This is where most answers will fall, the 4 to 7 bracket or middle band if you like. Looking through this, you'll see the word some mentioned a fair bit. There's some application, some analysis. Suggest the answer here would be okay, but needs to be doing a bit more to get into the top mark band. It should also be said that answers where you have one hook development being really good, but the second is much weaker fall into this category. It could even be that one way is applied very well with very good knowledge, analysis, evaluation, potentially scoring 7 marks. In the top mark band, 8 to 10 marks, you'll notice that basic becomes good knowledge and understanding. Some successful application becomes 2 developed applications of material from the item, and some analysis becomes appropriate analysis. The higher marks in this band will have an explanation of 2 ways, well applied with analysis and evaluation. Lower marks in this band will have one of the 2 ways, but with more limited application and analysis. You have some examples of ways in which you could answer the question here, but we'll have a look at the question 3 in a bit more detail. Here, some of the more obvious hooks have been highlighted. It is advised that you start each of your 2 paragraphs with a quoted statement from the item and then develop it to answer the question. You then need to apply the hooks successfully to processes. Here, those would be things like labelling, use of language codes, subcultures, streaming, and crucially, how is it impacted on the pupil's identity? Typical studies to appear would be by Bernstein, Becker, Lacey, and Archer to demonstrate pupil identity based on class, gender, or ethnicity. I'm going to go through a worked example of a response to this exam question from someone called Solomon. Here we can see, and this is the first part of his answer, where he's identified the part of the item that he's going to use to answer the question. He's made it clear to the examiner and he's used quotation marks. He now needs to develop this quote or hook, if you like, to help answer the question. Going back to our general rules list, he now needs to develop the answer further with reference to concepts and crucially some sort of evidence. We can see that here with the use of anti-subcultures, and this is explained. He's developing his answer. Here you can see he uses the findings from a study, in this case Mack and Gale, highlighted in green. This next sentence highlighted in blue is important because it links back to the question looking at the school process with reference to pupil identity. And then this final sentence of the first paragraph is a good example of evaluation that scores. Most evaluation is generic, and that doesn't add much. Whereas this really works because what it's doing is it's being directly made relevant to the specific question asked. This is his second paragraph. Here you can see Solomon uses a second quote from the item highlighted in yellow. Also note the way he introduces this with a clear signpost to the examiner of a second way, using the clear wording of another way. It's simple but effective. This has been clearly linked to the question here as we have a process labelling and the link to social class. We have a study from Becker and a relevant concept. Both are highlighted here in this next sentence. Again, we have findings from a study, a relevant concept, and a clear attempt to answer the question. There is an expansion of this point, and again, clear links to the essay, sorry, not the essay title, but the question title. As with the first paragraph, Solomon's final sentence of the last paragraph is a really good example of evaluation that scores. It's directly relevant to the specific question asked. In sum, Solomon follows the suggested framework to receive full marks, 10 out of 10 for his response to this exam question.